Peter Frampton is a Grammy Award-winning musician, singer, songwriter, and producer. One of the most celebrated guitarists in rock history, Peter got his start as a teenager with bands like The Preachers and The Herd, co-founding Humble Pie at just 18 years old. He went on to a solo career that has spanned 21 albums and more than 50 years. Listen in as Peter chats with John and Stewart about his writing and recording process, early influences, playing live, and his most recent record, Frampton Forgets the Words.
What are you doing these days?
Well, these days I'm writing and doing in my little music room here, writing songs for another, product,
Great.
piece of art, however you want to put it.
Yeah.
And it's not going to come out until it's absolutely phenomenal. So
Awesome.
They wanted something out this year, but I'm not ready. What's the rush?
Right.
So yeah, but I'm enjoying myself.
And do you do most of your work in your studio, or do you still venture out to other places to do stuff?
Well, I have my music room at home. I do a lot of solos and vocals here, but I do have a professional commercial studio about 10 minutes from me here that I bought when I moved to Nashville. So we do the whole band there. So Chuck Ainley has moved in, the wonderful engineer. And
he's wonderful.
And he's souped my studio up into sounding, he used his golden ears and said, I think you need a cloud here. So we put a cloud up and everything sounds wonderful now.
Amazing.
And every time he comes into the room, I tell him this. Every time he comes in, he says, we need one. I said, every time you come in, you cost me money.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just last weekend recording there's a studio designer named Wes Lachey who does a lot of stuff around North Carolina and other places, but he just built a studio from ground up a year ago that I went to test for the weekend with a band. And wow, when guys like that design great rooms, they are great rooms. It's unbelievable. It was so easy getting drum sounds and all that, it just blows my mind because I grew up an engineer, a music nerd engineer. I don't know studio design like that.
Right.
It's just amazing. So anyway, yeah, I could appreciate Chuck's input and stuff like that.
Oh man, he's so clever. And it's mainly, he's governed by these two ears that I swear he hears differently to the rest of us. So
Right. Well, you said golden ear. That's the classic.
Yeah, absolutely.
The classic thing. So great. So are you writing now, or are you just
writing and just playing and making little demos for the band? So I'm up to about, I guess, 8 things now. I want to have at least 15 or 16 things. We already have 6 recorded, but I want to have at least a dozen more at least.
Do you still record analog, or are you now in digital? And do you miss stuff about analog, or are you cool with the digital? I mean, it goes so many different ways,
I think the thing that I miss the most about analog recording is the rewind time.
Yeah.
When you had time for a puff on a cigarette in the bad old days, or a beer or coffee or whatever whatever you needed between takes. And we don't get that now. It's like when you finish okay, take 2. Here, wait a second. I think I need a minute to clear my head out before we go into the next take. But I was very much an analog hugger. And I even went to Clasp. I used Clasp, which is the piece of equipment that will link your DAW with your 24-track.
Right.
But unfortunately, Clasp died out before it could upgrade its software, so we couldn't use it anymore, unfortunately. Right. But that was great because you would press record on the DAW, and the 24-track would start wherever it was. The input would go into the input of the 24-track and come out and go into the input of the DAW. You're listening to input on the multi-track.
Right.
And then when it plays it back, the algorithm is such that it puts everything at the same start point, which is phenomenal, was phenomenal,
I will say about the rewinding thing, because you brought up a really good point, but I also as a mixer, I did enjoy hitting rewind and thinking about what I wanted to do on the song.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I had like a minute or something to think about what should I do? What should I do with that vocal? Should I, and now with the space bar, it's just like relentless. You know what I mean?
I know.
So I always found that interesting.
Is the last record you made the instrumental record?
Yes.
Where you forgot all the words?
Frampton Forgets the Words, yes.
It's really a beautiful record. The thing that really struck me about it is as I was listening to it, I'm thinking, who does this sound like? And it occurred to me that your guitar playing sounds like you're singing. and I really kind of felt like this is sort of a lesson in melody, right? Like the whole record is about melody. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of an exquisite record because it really, to me, sounded like I knew it was you. Besides your guitar playing, it sounded like you're vocalizing, which it just makes so much sense that it would be so connected.
Oh, well, thank you.
The band is really amazing. And I was wondering, how did you choose the songs?
Well, we'd done an album before. This was all right before we went on the American-Canadian farewell tour, which was in 2019. 2020 March is when it hit, the pandemic. So before we even went on the road in 2019, we made the blues album, All Blues, and Frampton Forgets the Words in this 3-month period where we just kept recording and recording. There's more material that we recorded that still has to come out. So we had this, I wanted to play, because of my IBM, I wanted to play as much as possible in the shortest space of time. So the idea for me to play and record, it was necessary to use covers because I didn't have enough time to write 2 albums worth, or 3, it ended up 3 albums worth of material. So we decided to do the All Blues, and we chose the songs on the All Blues as well as Frampton Forgets the Words the same way. Basically, I just said to the band, choose all your favorite blues numbers and send me some numbers that you think would be good instrumentally. And then I just went through their lists. And of course, I had my list. And I literally sat down with my guitar and played the original, each original, and played along with it. And the ones that just, I went, I like that. I can do this one good. I'm having fun here, So it really, they picked themselves. It's what I felt most comfortable with. I mean, I knew there had to be a Bowie one. I knew there had to be a George one, so it was pretty obvious what I was going to do there, I think. As far as Bowie, that was the number that I played. Loving the Alien was the song that David gave me a huge spotlight for a guitar solo at the end of that on the Glass Spider tour. And so I just thought, well, that's the perfect song to do as a tribute, the one that he gave me to play, It was nerve-wracking doing the George Harrison one and the Bowie one because I knew them and they were classic songs that everybody knows, and they had to be good.
Yeah.
So, quality control has to be right up there, the Framp control.
Yeah. The Bowie one, really interesting. You really honored the melody so well. When you hear it just as an instrumental, you appreciate how deep his melody writing was.
Oh, gosh.
Because
yes.
There's nothing straight ahead about it.
No, not at all. It even walks across itself in the run-up. Da, 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 da.
Yes.
It loses beats, it gains beats. You just have to go with it.
Totally. All the connective tissue from the verse to the chorus. You honored it so well. It was. I really appreciated that.
Thank you.
I heard the Avalon version.
I think that was the one that, I could have picked any song from that album because it is, I've said this before, but there's very few perfect albums, and that is one of them. Right. That's one of my perfect records.
No, I get that.
Oh, my goodness. For everything. You just zero in on any detail on that record or the feel or whatever. It's all there. It's just like, it couldn't be any better.
And you captured the emotion and even the sound on your version that really, it's that song.
I love Brian's voice in general, but on Avalon, he's really throwing it away. He's crooning it, that Brian croon, you know. And so I knew what guitar I would use on the neck pickup and what amp I wanted that I knew. I've got this Vox AC 15 that's 1964, and the 335 that's behind me there, that's a 59.
Nice.
And I just played da 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 da. I went, and everybody went, wow, that sounds sort of sounds like Brian.
Right.
You know, so I was going for that, and I think I got the closest to the originator's vocal feel on that one than any.
Yeah, you did.
You know, I mean,
100%.
I really tried on all of them, but that I think is my favorite rendition as a tribute to Brian and Roxy Music.
Yeah, Roxy Music was so huge for me growing up, as you were in Humble Pie and just so many bands. But those first 6 records are just, to me, and they're different, which is really wonderful. They really changed their sound as they went, and it was just so impactful. Like Country Life is one of my favorite records also, but it sounds really different, you know, from the later ones. It's just wonderful. Anyway.
Yeah, they didn't like repeating themselves at all, which was wonderful, you know.
Yeah.
If you think of the juxtaposition between Love is the Drug and Avalon, wow.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's wild.
It's cool to see you choose songs from contemporaries and people obviously who you've worked with and been influenced by. But you started so young as a professional. Like, what were your earliest influences? Were they your peers, or were they, like, did you have musical tastes that were outside of what you were doing?
Yes. And when I started playing guitar very young, you know, 7, 8 years old, rock and roll was starting. It was 55 was what Elvis, and so by the time I was 58, 59, it was coming at us from all angles. Not on the BBC though; they were still playing Mantovani. But we were on Radio Luxembourg. You could hear these American, like Eddie Cochran, Buddy Holly. I mean, the list goes on, of course. And then we had our homegrowns. You know, Cliff Richard and the Shadows, Adam Faith. So much Billy Fury. And, you know, there were so many English rockers as well. So because I was drawn to the guitar, I think the band that really influenced me first was the Shadows, Hank Marvin. He's a dear friend now and has been for many years. And it's weird meeting the guy and being friends with the guy that is the reason you play, you know, today.
Yeah.
So it's a wonderful relationship.
Right.
And I got to play with the Shadows on my instrumental record, Fingerprints, as well. So in London. So that was a dream come. I spent a day, joined the Shadows. So, but as well as, again, I'm going to use that juxtaposition again. My dad and mum, obviously, during the war, before the war, Second World War, there's almost number three going on now. So you got to be, you got to say which war we're talking about here. And they would listen to gypsy jazz. So their favorites, they would go up to London and dance at the 100 Club, whatever it was, and it would be Django Reinhardt and the Stéphane Grappelli and the Hot Club de France, you know. And so when we got our first record player, which was when I was probably that same time period, guitar, record player, it all sort of came at once. And he bought 2 albums. He bought the Shadows' first album for me, and the best of the unforgettable Hot Club de France, with Django and co. And literally, I would come down on a Saturday. Dad and I would have a Saturday morning music thing. So he said, "You play your shadows first," because he loved that too. So I would play that and play along in the living room. And then he said, "Are you done?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Okay, I'm going to put on some." Oh no, let me leave the room first. Don't put that stuff on. What are you going to put on? You say, "Well, Django, oh gosh, it's all acoustic and it's jazzy stuff. I don't, So anyway, I couldn't get to my bedroom upstairs quick enough, And my kids say even today, Dad's listening to that silent movie music again. So anyway, you can imagine what happened is that, each time I left the room, I didn't get quite as close to my bedroom because I would hear Django do one of those. Oh my goodness! Wait a second. Let me go check Dad. What was that? He's really good, this Django. You should listen to him. So ever since I was 8 years old, I've either been listening to Hank Marvin or Django Reinhardt.
What did Les Paul come into play at all?
Yes, he did. But and we did have some Les Paul and Mary Ford records as well. Yes, absolutely. And that was the guy that I didn't quite understand how he was doing 74 guitars,
Yeah,
So that got me into thinking about sound on sound, And so I had one reel-to-reel tape machine when I was about 9. I mean, I was hardcore from an early age.
Yeah.
And cheap old thing it was. And then I said to Mom and Dad, I know I have one tape recorder, but I need another one. They said, "Why do you need
Genius.
two?" I said, "I can't really explain it, but I'll play it to you once we got it." So I had this. I would record the rhythm on my acoustic onto the tape recorder one, have the speaker facing this way, play it back, have the microphone over here, or put it in front of my guitar and the speaker. So now I'm picking up the lead part and the rhythm. Not great quality, but I'm actually overdubbing and having.
Yeah, you're overdubbing.
I'm
That's
overdubbing,
amazing.
So when I made friends with Les Paul, I said, I got to tell you, I said, I used to use our family bathroom as a chamber. I put a speaker in the bath and a crystal mic on the windowsill, and I would play my guitar. I don't know how I did it, but I had a send and a return, believe it or not. And I would send it through to the bath, and it would get picked up on the crystal mic, and I had reverb.
That's amazing.
And then Les said, I used to stick Mary in the bathroom all the time.
That's so funny. I recorded horns in a bathroom once, and it was a really small room, but it sounded fantastic.
Yeah, had that short decay, right?
Yeah. So good. So good. Oh, my God. And then what was your first rock band? Was it The Herd, or was there something before them?
No. Before them, I had a band at school when I was about 10 or 11. We didn't have a drummer, though. So it was just bass, piano, and guitar called the Little Ravens. And then I helped form a band called the True Beats, which was a Shadows, Ventures kind of, cover band,
Yeah.
But we had to throw in the occasional, Elvis, Buddy Holly, or Eddie Cochran, and sometimes some Cliff Richard songs, whatever. So whatever was on the charts. So, and then the Beatles came out, and we said, oh gosh, we've got to do a lot more singing. So that's when we sort of changed into a more of a Beatles cover band and Shadows. Then the bass player's father, who was kind of managing the True Beats, said to my dad, who's a teacher, by the way, says, I think Peter should leave school because we've had an offer because, the band's so good to go professional. And that's the only time my dad has put his foot down and said, well, not with my son. You know,
Right.
he's 12, 13 years old. He's right at the most important part of his curriculum, you know. So anyway, I was very sad. They brought my albums back.
Oh,
Here's
boy.
your albums, Pete. So I knew I was leaving. And then I started just playing around town, doing various things and sitting in with bands and stuff. I was still very young. And then I was working in this shop called Robertson's in Beckenham, which is where I was born, actually. And on a Saturday, I wasn't old enough to hold down a regular job, but on a Saturday, I could assist in a music shop. So my job was polishing the guitars and changing strings and, you know, setting them up and all that because it was the kind of place in South London where all these great musicians would come in and jam. So, and I would join in. Well, one day, this friend who was to be a friend, close friend, came in. I had not met him before, but he had been the original drummer of the Rolling Stones, Tony Chapman, before Charlie, and had actually introduced Bill Wyman to the Stones as the bass player because they were best friends.
Interesting.
So when Charlie came in and Tony was removed, as it were, unfortunately, Bill said to Tony, look, I realize you got me the gig and now you don't have the gig. And he said, whenever you want me to help you in the future, I will. So Tony came into the shop and he said, I'm forming a band, semi-pro band, and Bill Wyman's going to produce it. And I said, oh, really? And so he said, would you play would you join the band? And I said, well, it depends. I mean, are we going to do all-nighters on a Sunday night? I've got a math test at 9 o'clock in the morning on Mondays. And he said, no, it'll just be Fridays and Saturdays. Well, of course it wasn't. So I fell asleep during the math test, obviously. My math teacher hated me. But I joined this band called The Preachers. And Tony said, look, I'm going to come round. I'm going to give you like a bunch of albums. And we're going to rehearse. Our first rehearsal's on Tuesday. Can you learn these over the weekend? And so it was everything from Otis Blue to Rolling Stones to Roland Kirk. But I mean, it was a plethora of different styles: jazz, R&B, rock, blues. It covered everything, and I started to sweat a little as he'd marked off what tracks, on each album, and there was a stack this big. So I didn't do much sleeping between then and Tuesday, and learned them all, and came in and that was it. I joined this band, and we ended up being produced by Bill Wyman for a single called Hole in My Soul. And the Stones took over our big show, Ready, Steady, Go, rock show, 6 minutes past 8.
Oh, wow.
8 minutes past 6 on a Friday night. And it was live. The Stones took it over for one whole week, one whole show. And so each one of the Stones chose an artist as a guest. And Bill, of course, had just produced us. So the Preachers were on Ready, Steady, Go.
Oh, my God.
With the Stones. I sat there with Ian Stewart, the Stones tour manager, and I kind of knew them by now. I got to know them a little bit. And I'm helping him change Keith's strings just on the stage, sitting on the stage there. And then I actually saw them do Satisfaction for the first time, so live.
So we're talking 64, 65, 64?
Yeah, 64. I was 14 when we were on that TV show. 14. Wow. It was like February, March of 65, because I was just about to turn 15 in April.
That's amazing.
And and then just to complete the bands here, I went to we were playing a show in London, and two of the Herd, who had been around a long time, this band had already had a record label, lost a deal, this whatever, big local band. Two of them, I knew them all because I'd bugged them for me to sit in. So they, all right, kid, come on, sit in. So so they knew who I was. So they came to see me, Andrew Bown and Gary Taylor, keys and bass of the Herd, came to see me play with the Preachers. And after the show, they asked me to, we've lost our rhythm player. Can you come and just fill in on rhythm for the summer? So I'm now 16, and I'm in the holidays, the school vacation, summer vacation, and I was going to come back to the sixth form for 2 years, do my A-levels exams, and then go to music college, Guildhall School of Music, I was hoping to get into. So now I'm on the road with the Herd during the summer holiday, and at the end of about a month before I was going to go back to school, they said, well, can you join the band? And I said, I don't think so. This wouldn't go down. I know how this is going to go down at home. So anyway, I went home and I spoke to my mother and father, and I said, look, the Herd want me to join the band and leave school. And I saw my dad's face turn fuchsia, I think is the color. I'm not sure, but it was bright, sort of purpley red.
Right.
And little beads of sweat up here, and the clenched teeth, this, like this. And I could tell this wasn't going down well at all. So I looked at Mom, and Mom she'd had something happen to her that plays into all this. When she was in high school, she was offered a scholarship, no money, to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Well, all she needed, the scholarship was free for the, 2 to 4 year, whatever the syllabus was, but she needed £50 as the entrance fee. Well, she went home to her mum and dad, and this is the 20s,
Holy shit. Right.
Right. So we're in the 20s, wow. And she says to her mother, I'm going to be an actress. And she said, oh, no, you're not. You might as well be a prostitute then. That's the way they regarded actresses, with the high knees and the short skirts, Right. And so no, Mum, and this is serious. Dame Edith, whatever, has given me a scholarship from the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. And she said, well, no, you're going to go out and get a nice job as a secretary and bring all that money home.
Right. Yeah, that's an ironic story because my daughter wanted to be a prostitute. And I said, you might as well be an actress. Sorry.
I laid myself wide open for that.
You sure did.
Yes.
Peter, when did you first come to the United States? What was your first tour?
1969. It was a Humble Pie tour, and we came over with Immediate Records, was our label at the time. That was Andrew Oldham, and right. We toured. We opened for Mountain in a lot of places.
Amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, it was great. And but in the end, it didn't go so well. We weren't earning enough money, and we didn't get enough tour support from Immediate Records. So I remember when we'd done our gig in Los Angeles, and we were staying at the Ramada Inn, and remember coming back to the hotel, all our suitcases were outside the doors, and our keys didn't work anymore. So I suddenly realized, we haven't paid the bill.
Oh boy.
Right.
We're out of here. So we basically had our return ticket to London. That was it.
That was it.
And
that was before you guys were on A&M.
Yes, it was. Just before,
okay,
yeah.
Gotcha.
Then the following year, 70, is, I believe, even 1969, I think the end of 69, I think, is when we signed with A&M.
Amazing. Rockin' the Fillmore is one of the few only a couple records growing up I have, but I think I'm now on my third copy of the vinyl because I played it so much, I wore it out. Bought a second one, wore that one out because it just played constantly. It was just such a crazy record for me as like a 14-year-old to listen to. It was just unbelievable.
Oh,
but
thank you.
That's such a classic. I mean, there's only a few, for me, classic live records, and you've been involved with, your Frampton Comes Alive and Rockin' the Fillmore just like are classics. It's unbelievable. I can't think of many more. I mean, I was a Grateful Dead kid growing up, but even those records I liked, but they didn't have the impact of both those records.
Right.
Speaking of the impact, Peter, are you aware of the influence of how these bands changed the course of rock and roll? I mean, Humble Pie really, I could name about 5 huge bands who I could hear the direct influence, right down to AC/DC or Guns N' Roses, but the influence was massive. Obviously, you couldn't have been aware of it at the time, but have you since made that connection?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Humble Pie. Paul Stanley says, there would be no Kiss if there were no Humble Pie kind of thing.
Amazing.
So he's a dear friend. But I mean, yeah, I do. The thing is that even before Steve and I formed Humble Pie, Steve had a song called You Need Lovin'. And it turned out that Led Zeppelin.
Right.
And
yeah.
Oh, wow.
But Robert does, because Steve used to say, there was this guy in the front row, every time the Small Faces would play, and he would like talk to us afterwards, and I think his name was Robert something, and he would, every time we played, he was there, So he was obviously a huge Steve fan. We know that,
Right.
And he admits that, so. But.
And were you a Small Faces fan at that point, or?
Oh, yes. From the very first time I saw them on Ready, Steady, Go, they played What You Gonna Do About It, which was their first hit single, live. And there's this great, he was playing a Gretsch, and either a White Falcon or something like that. And there's this feedback solo in that song. And it was fantastic. It was the only other feedback thing I've ever seen live on TV, like when Pete Townsend first kicked that guitar that was leaning up against the amp in My Generation. Bang, But I realized that Humble Pie, a lot of guitar players like that, I think, because it was the playoff between myself and Steve, being
amazing.
One being hard edge blues with so much feeling he had. His playing was so great. And then I came from the Shadows, Django Reinhardt side, Kenny Burrell, Wes Montgomery, but also listening to Eric Clapton and Jimi Hendrix. So, it was all hitting you at once. There was so much available input guitar-wise at that point,
Yeah.
It's like the guitar version of that blood harmony they talk about in country music, where the two brothers harmonize and they just do it naturally. Like I'm fascinated by that too.
Like the Everly Brothers,
or the Louvin brothers, or whoever pick up. But yeah, the way you guys did it, it was just natural. It wasn't like it just happened. It was great. It was crazy. So,
there was the good thing about our band was that, we could have a set amount of numbers. It was the same with me now, set amount of numbers for a set. But if the set was going really well, the audience reaction was great, and everything would grow, and it would get longer. So we were definitely jamming.
It's great.
And it was very spectacular, Humble Pie. We would be, our dynamics, and Steve, I give Steve credit for that. He loved to take it all the way down and then bring it up. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, bang, we're in, full tilt. And I learned so much from Steve. I mean, he was a genius. I mean, and people, I just saw a poll of, best rock and roll singer ever, and he's not in the list, Chris Farlow or Paul Rodgers weren't even in the list, where, And then someone said, "There's no women." Well, I thought they were talking about male singers. So, but yeah, it's just a crime to me that if it weren't for Paul Rodgers and Steve, those are two of our most incredible rock voices. You know, Paul is smoother, but still incredible singer. Always has been, and Steve too.
Yeah, and then Free had the same thing with Paul, and then Paul, the guitar player.
Paul Kossoff.
Yeah, Paul Kossoff, and they had the amazing rapport. It was just like they were both just so in sync with each other.
Yeah,
it was
the
wonderful.
whole band actually, bass and Simon on drums. I mean,
right? Yeah,
they were only a 3-piece. You know, that was the
right.
thing. And Paul did play piano, though. You know,
right.
But
No, you guys all made it phenomenal to be like a teenager in 1973, 1974.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was like I grew up listening to all your and those records, Free and then Bad Company. I think I saw their first concert at Central Park, their first tour.
Right.
And they opened up for Foghat, and they just blew the shit away.
right.
You know, maybe that was 76, 77. But yeah, no, it's like you guys changed lives. It was crazy. It was like just fucking crazy. So
Well, we were having fun doing it. That's for sure.
It sounded like it. But then you went from being in bands to starting your own solo career.
Yes.
Was there a moment that you made that decision? How'd that come about?
Let's see. I got to the point where I was writing songs that weren't. They had been suitable for Humble Pie a couple of albums ago, but now we had, like with Rock On and then Rockin' the Fillmore, we had kind of gone into this higher energy type of band. That's what people were liking us for, as well as the quieter things, more acoustic things, I mean. I just got to that point where I said, I can't do this with Humble Pie. I need to, and we knew. I mixed the live record with mainly just me and Eddie Kramer in New York and Rockin' the Fillmore, and I just thought, this is the more I listened to it, the more we mixed it. I said, I think this is going to be a hit. We're giving Humble Pie's audience exactly what they come to see, you know. And we were better known for our live performance than our records, you know. So I said, I better leave now if I'm going to leave, because if I don't, I'll never leave, because I knew it would be successful. And so I did, and told D. Anthony, the manager, came over and to show us the album cover. Well, I lived in London. They lived out of town. So I went to his hotel and looked at the album cover. It's fantastic. It's the one we all know. And so I said, I've got some news. I'm leaving the band. He said, you're not. You're crazy. So I said, no, can't do it anymore. I've already moved on mentally, you know, to my own thing. And I had nothing planned, you know. It wasn't as if I'd had something, you know, like Yes had asked me to join the band or something, you know. It wasn't
that
like
would
that.
be incredible.
Well, they did later, but
Oh my God.
Wow.
Oh, geez.
yeah, I've been asked to join a few bands. So anyway, you know, it was time to go. And I called, he said, well, you better call the guys. So I called Jerry and Steve, who were together down in the country. I told them, and they went berserk. They were crazy. They were so upset, you know. I don't blame them. But I think what Steve liked about the fact that I was in the band is because it was a 50-50 share as far as the input musically. Definitely 50%. Maybe he was 55%. But I mean, musically and playing-wise and persona of the band was definitely the two of us, you know. And the way we reacted to each other musically, it was like, as we say in England, chalk and cheese. The difference was so great between us that when we played together, it was otherworldly. It was so great to play together.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so funny. Wow. Chalk and cheese. I got to remember that.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
And so, having these massive live records, do you have more of an interest in playing live or the studio, or is it a different thrill, or how do you feel about the studio?
Yeah, well, I mean, studio and live couldn't be any more different if they tried, One, the live, which is what I prefer, if I could only pick one, you walk out there to the side of the stage, you say goodbye to anybody, managers or crew or whatever. You walk out, and as soon as you're out on that stage, no one can tell me what to do.
Right.
I've got complete control from that moment onwards. And whether it's a band or it's a solo artist, the players have control. And we're not coming off until we're done. And you might not like what I want to say or do, but I'm going to do it anyway. It's my happy place is live.
Right.
Always. Studio is the adrenaline from live contributes greatly to my playing. I think it makes me go places that I would not normally go in the studio. And so, but in the studio, you have a situation where there's a man behind the glass, and there's you in the studio, and you're doing either a solo, or you're overdubbing a solo, or you're doing a vocal or whatever, and then you pour your heart out, and then you look up and they go, yeah.
Yeah.
One more like that, a little bit more energy. And you go, fuck you. That was as much energy as I've got right now.
Right. Right.
So it's like, I'm not a big, I tend to like recording on my own when I'm doing stuff that, like vocals and guitars. I love working with Chuck with guitars, but when I'm at home working on, so I just played on Dion's new record. And
wow.
I played on this blues of his, and I'd been in the doldrums because of, my fingers are slowing me down a little bit, and it's the legs are not working as well as they should. And I'd had a little bit of a moment for a couple of weeks there, and I wasn't, doing too good. And so I got this call from Dion, and I said, Dion? Really? And he said, yeah, man, yeah. I'm doing this record. I got Eric Clapton, Mark Knopfler, and he said, I need you too. So I said, wow, well, thank you. That's great. I'm such a huge fan, So anyway, he said, would you play on a track? I said, yes. But I have to tell you, I said, because of my IBM, I have to ask your a favor of you. And he said, go ahead. I said, if I don't think it's good enough, I'm not going to send it to you. But if I think it's good enough, you'll have it. And I'm going to try my damnedest. And I explained, I have issues with my legs and my fingers and stuff. And he said, man, go for it. I just love you to do it. So I spent a week not recording anything, just listening to the track. Over and over, and
that's great.
And just inhabit. I didn't even pick up a guitar yet. I was just inhabiting the song, And there was a lot of space for guitar, so I had to do a lot of thinking.
And a lot of listening.
A lot of listening. And so then, literally a week, I was too nervous to attempt it. So the following week, I just started playing, take after take, and then have a tea break, do 3 more takes, have a coffee break, and then 4 more takes, have lunch, And that's the beauty of being home. You can pick the moment, when
right.
I don't feel like you go to the studio and you're booked at 11 o'clock or whatever, and I don't feel like recording today. I just don't feel it, And whereas when I'm at home, I can just say, well, okay, maybe I'll feel like it tomorrow. Tomorrow I wake up and bingo, I do the whole thing. So, you can never, you have to wait for inspiration, I think. And, but anyway, there you go.
And so Nashville, so many wonderful English rock stars have landed there, right? Mm-hmm. And what brought you there?
Well, initially it was a publishing situation whereby I was living in Phoenix. We just had the 94 earthquake in LA, so we'd moved from LA to Phoenix, or Scottsdale actually, and we lived there for a year, and it was just too hot in the summers. If the kids fell off their bikes, they'd get third-degree burns on their thighs, So it's so hot, but beautiful. It's the most gorgeous place for sunsets. Oh my God, I love it. And so anyway, my publisher said, "Have you thought about going to Nashville and like doing a week or 10 days just working with all the different writers down there?" And I said, "Oh wow, yeah, let's try that." So my wife said, "I hope you like it," meaning hope you like Nashville.
Send me a postcard.
She wasn't thrilled with Phoenix. So anyway, I get there and I had a great time. I worked with lots of great writers and made lots of friends and realized that a lot of friends were already here. And so I just called back. I said, I think this is it. I think this is not New York. This isn't LA. It's like a small town city. And not anymore.
Right.
But then, 20 years ago, it was, or more, it was a small town city, basically.
Wow.
So wait, you've been there 20 years?
Well, no, I moved around a bit. We came to Nashville in like 95 for about 4 or 5 years. Then we moved to Cincinnati because of a family situation with my wife. Lived there for a while, and then I came back 10 years ago.
So you really have seen it change, because
oh my goodness,
I hadn't been there at all until a couple of years ago. So the first time I got there, I was blown away by how much stuff goes on there.
Well, you'd be blown away since Tuesday how much has come.
Yeah.
It's like I mean, I've been here 10 years, and I'm in a condo. A lovely place. It's a duplex condo and incredible views and all that. Less views now, though.
Right.
But I mean, about 6 years ago, I looked out around, sort of got a panoramic kind of thing. I'm very lucky. And I counted 33 cranes.
Oh, my God.
And that's all I could see. There were, I mean, over here is the stadium, and I can't see behind the stadium, that's it, So, but it just, I couldn't believe it. So in the end, I decided recently that I was going to get a house and move. It's got too loud and too busy here for me now.
Right.
I enjoyed every moment here. It's been fantastic. Right. I've never lived downtown anywhere before, and I really enjoyed it here. You're 10 minutes from everything, But it's time to, I'm going to get a dog and go out to the country and have me some green grass and some quiet.
Yeah, I could see living in Nashville.
Yeah.
Like it's just so, it literally is the music capital of the country.
Now it is, yeah.
Yep.
I watched it. I lived in New York. I watched the demise of New York as everyone went to LA. I moved to LA and I watched the demise of recording, and then digital came in, laptops came in. And then all these, that's how I was able to buy the studio here, because the big studios were doing great business, but the smaller places were going out of business because everyone was recording at home, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I managed to pick it up at a really decent price, and it's now, oh my goodness, it's so state of the art. It's wonderful. All right, John and
was really
Stewart,
great.
thank you so
Awesome,
much.
Peter.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Yeah.